Alright, now we're going to Sutta 2 of SD 40, that is the Assalāyana Sutta, M93, Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 93, the discourse to Assalāyana. This sutta is about purity, which is not on account of birth or rebirth. This is a very interesting sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, and this sutta is interesting historically as well as spiritually. This is probably the first sutta, the oldest sutta that makes any reference to the ancient Greeks. You will see the Buddha mentioning Greek society, so we will look at it in a while. This sutta is a debate between a young brahmin, probably around 16 years or slightly older. He's a very brilliant student. There's nothing unique about such a genius because they're trained from very young. So the word manava, usually translated as a boy, but it can also translate as a brahmin. Here manava refers especially to a young brahmin student who is very good in his training. So he's an expert in the mantras, meaning the Vedas, and other learning of the brahmins, right? He's a very intelligent person. He knows, for example, that the Buddha, as a Dhamma teacher, is a very good debater. It's very hard to beat him. He knows that. But the other Brahmins do not know this. So the other Brahmins were trying to knock down the Buddha. So the sutta opens with some 500 Brahmins from the provinces, if you like. They've come to Sāvatthī and on some business, and they met this young Brahmin, Assalāyana, and so they encourage him to go to the Buddha and debate with him and prove that his idea is wrong. What is this idea? This idea that the four classes are all equally pure. You're not pure by birth, so to speak. Of course, the sutta on purity by action is found in the Vasita Sutta. But today, in this sutta, Assalāyana Sutta, we have all the interesting arguments given by the Buddha on why it is wrong to say that people are born pure according to class. Now, a bit of a social background is useful here. Where were these Brahmins from? They're probably from the West country, where the Brahmanism is very strong, whereas the area of the Buddha, the Kshatriyas, were the main class, if you like. We see the rise of kings in this area, especially people like King Pasenadi, Ajatasattu, and so on. So they were building up this big empire. They were Kshatriyas, right? And this is also a time when you see foreign influences, foreign presence in India also. For example, the Greeks. They were certainly there in northwest India, for example. And a few years after the Buddha's passing, Alexander the Great will be invading across Asia, right to the doorsteps of India. And we also know that even before that, when the Persians were attacking Greece, the ancient Persians, they were very powerful too, these Persians. They conquered the whole of what we call Middle East, that is the southern part, Iraq, Iran, and right across, almost into India. In fact, you might say that the Persian kings did conquer quite a lot of India, and we know this because there are Indian soldiers also fighting in the Persian army, and it's recorded in the ancient historical records that they were dressed in tree wool. Tree wool refers to cotton, because it's not the wool of this of sheep. So it's a tree wool refers to cotton, right? Cotton clothing, which is very common in India. And they were using bows and arrows, all right? So they were in the army. So in other words, these Indian soldiers, they followed the Persian army, they've gone all the way to Greece. And there are famous stories, how the Greeks fought back, some of them even to their death, like 300 Spartans, they fought back against thousands of other Persians and Persian soldiers, or other soldiers under the Persian king, Darius, for example. So they know the greatness of the Greeks, the bravery of the Greeks, and so on. So you find this cross-culture is there. And through such cross-culture, we get, for example, ideas, especially the idea of the great man, idea of the 32 marks, for example. There's a lot of theories about the idea of the 32 marks, and one possible theory, interesting theory, is that these 32 marks are based on Alexander the Great. So in other words, this sutta was compiled quite late, in other words, partly to boost the image of the Buddha. So these are some interesting things we can study separately. For example, you can look at the Assalāyana Sutta in the Digha Nikaya for the 32 marks, or the Cakkavatti Sihanada Sutta, or the nature of the great man. But today we're looking at the nature of the four classes. And the Buddha is going to refute the wrong views of the Brahmins, represented by Assalāyana. The name Assalāyana, of course, is very famous, very ancient, goes back to long ancient times. So this is one of the famous Brahmins who bear that name, if you like. The details are given in introduction, you can look at them. So we begin on page 59. The discourse to Assalāyana, M93. Thus have I heard, at one time the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's monastery park in Jeta's Grove near Sāvatthī. Now at that time some 500 brahmins from various provinces were staying in Sāvatthī for some business or other. This from various provinces, probably from the west of the Buddha land, if you like. Then it occurred to those brahmins, this recluse Gotama prescribes purity of the four classes. Now who is there able to refute the recluse Gotama? Right? So they're against the idea that everyone is equal. Because to them, our class, we the Brahmins are the purest, the highest, the best. And the other three classes should respect us, serve us. So this class system, the idea of the priest class. In fact, if you look at the nature of the priest class, it is also an idea very common in the Middle East. In Mesopotamia, for example, the priests, very powerful. Some of them are like kings, or the king is a priest. So you have this idea in India also, but the Buddha rejects such an idea. So the Brahmins are looking for a representative, a spokesman, to represent them and to refute the Buddha, to beat the Buddha in a debate. This is very common in India, where you have two teachers debating each other, or you have people who are looking for answers, they move around and they ask questions. And if they lose, they're very honorable. They will join the other group. Right? As we know today, the evangelists are not very honorable at all. They come with the idea of just converting the audience or the other person without any intelligent discussion. Right? But in the Buddha's time, there was this honor in truth. We discuss, we try to seek the truth. Next section, 3.2. Now at that time, a 16-year-old Brahmin youth named Assalāyana, young, shaven-headed, was staying in Sāvatthī. Then his qualification is given. He was a master of the three Vedas, along with their invocation and rituals, phonology and etymology, and the Itihasa Puranas as the fifth. These are the 5 learnings. Learned in the Vedic Padas, a grammarian, well-versed in nature law and the marks of a great man. This is called a stock passage, which shows this the syllabus, the learning that these Brahmins have. The 3 Vedas, of course, the ancient recited oral teachings of the Brahmins, and then they have their prayers, their rituals, and they're very particular about sounds and words and grammar. Then they have their sacred history, in other words, stories of saints. Sometimes all these are invented stories to show real stories about holy beings, great beings, to invoke the piety and the faith of the followers, and attract more people to their belief. And they also have teachings about the world, the universe. But there's something which the Buddhists added, that is the last one, the marks of a great man. This particular phrase, the marks of a great man, is found only in the Buddhist texts. Apparently it is not found in any of the Brahmanical texts. So it's possible, like I said, this idea could have been added on after the time of Alexander, before Ashoka's time. So these Brahmins, they approach Assalāyana, and they tell him, come on, we want you to confront the Buddha, debate him, and prove to him that this idea which he holds that all the 4 classes are same in purity is wrong. But this young Brahmin, he's intelligent. He has lived in Sāvatthī long enough. He knows the Buddha is very wise. He's been converting so many Brahmins and intelligent people. He does not want to debate the Buddha. 3 times he was asked. 3 times he says no. He says no. Why is that? He says his reason is very interesting, very clear. You see, you look at the last part here, the 3rd time, 4.7, he says, surely says, I'm not getting through to you. When I say that the recluse Gotama is a Dharma speaker, and Dharma speakers are difficult to refute, I will not be able to refute the recluse Gotama regarding this statement about the 4 castes. But because it's been asked 3 times, there's a bit of tradition here. Once it's 3 times, you better say yes, or you say no. In this case, he has to say yes to his own colleagues, out of respect to them. So he says, even then, sirs, I will go at your bidding. So I say, well, I already told you, I'm warning you. I say, Buddha is very hard to refute, But anyway, since you asked me to go, I'll go. So in a sense, he is going half-heartedly, if you like. So, but just to make his colleagues happy. Actually, they thought, you see, this is the Brahmin's own undoing, because when they make him go to meet the Buddha, in the end he was convinced and he took refuge in the Buddha. Alright, so the 500 of them with Assalāyana at the head, they went to meet the Buddha. Probably many more people also came. It's a big thing, a debate. It's like a show in town. So everybody will come and listen. Right, so he goes to the Buddha and he presents this challenge. 5.2. Of course, when they first meet, they'll be very civil to each other, greet each other, and so on. Then Sita does at one side, just correct the spelling here. The Brahmin youth Assalāyana said this to the Blessed One. Master Gautama, the Brahmin said this. The Brahmin is the best class. Any other class is inferior. The Brahmin is the fair class. Any other class is dark. Only Brahmins are pure or purified, not the non-Brahmins. Brahmins are Brahmas or God's own sons, the offspring from his mouth, born of Brahma, created by Brahma, heirs of Brahma, right? Now this last part, being born a Brahmin, the Buddha has spoken, has repeated in the Tevijja Sutta, a very famous sutta. So this is very close to Tevijja Sutta, found in Digha Nikaya. Right, so here, the statement here about the Brahmins, but by Assalāyana, is that the Brahmins are born pure, they are born in the mouth of God, and therefore they are of the highest class, they are fair skin and so on. And the Buddha's answer, 5.3, says, now, Assalāyana, we can see the Brahminis are the Brahmin women, the wives of the Brahmins, who have seasons, menstrual period, and bear children and give suck. And yet these yoni-born or womb-born Brahmins say thus, that the Brahmins are the best class, are the purest, they're born from the mouth of God, and so on and so forth, right? So the Buddha is bringing the obvious. He says, well, you can say what you like, but if you really look at these women of the Brahmins, they're just like any other woman, They too, have their menstrual periods, and you have to have sex, they have babies, and then the babies are born in the womb and the birth canal just like any other woman. So what's so special about this claim? Right? Of course, convincing, but the Brahmins say they're not convinced. They say, no, we still claim the Brahmins are the best, born of mouth of God, etc., etc. Then the Buddha gives a second argument. This is a social argument, argument from birth. This whole section is called argument from birth, if you like. And this is where the Buddha quotes the Greeks and the Cambodians and the countries to the west. Okay? 6.2. What do you think, Assalāyana? Have you heard that in Yona, Cambodia, and the countries beyond the borders, there are only two classes, that is, master and slave. Having been masters, they are slaves. Having been slaves, they are masters. So only two groups. So the Brahmins say, yes, they have heard. They all know because it's a well-known fact. So in other words, so who are the Yonas here? Yona is probably an Indian word for Iona, which was the Greeks of the western side of the Mediterranean. And these Greeks move around, they also become traders in India and so on. And you have the Cambodia. The Cambodians, they are a group of tribal people, three main groups in the mountains of the Hindu Kush. They were said to be very fierce fighters. The ancestors, their descendants are there even up to today. They are among the fiercest of the fighters that Alexander the Great had to fight. In fact, it was a very difficult battle when Alexander fought these tribes of the Cambodians. So, among the Cambodians, among the Yonas, you might even say in ancient Greece, you might even say that in the Buddha's time, the Buddha himself knew about the ancient Greeks, if you like. Okay? So it's referring to the Greeks.
Yeah.
And the Brahmins agree, they said they know about that. Again, they say they're not convinced. Okay, they claim they are the purest class and so on and so forth. So the Buddha gives a third argument. This is on karma, bad karma and good karma. So here the Buddha says, 7.2, what do you think, Assalāyana? Is it that only the Kshatriyas, warrior class member, who destroys life, takes the not given, commits sexual misconduct, speaks falsehood, speaks maliciously, speaks harsh words, speaks frivolously, is covetous, has a heart of ill will, hold wrong views, who with the body stricken out after death, will be reborn in a plane of misery, a bad destination, in a lower realm, in hell, but not a Brahmin? Right? So here the Buddha challenges and says, are you saying that if a person of a Kshatriya class, the ruling class, the noble class, if they break any of the 10 if they practice only 10 bad causes of conduct, this is an extended 5 precepts if you like. If they habitually do bad deeds, bad karma, then only they will go to a suffering state. Not so, right? So similarly, not only a kshatriya, not only a vaishya as a merchant, not only a shudra, working class member, even if anyone, even if a brahmin, any of the 4 classes, if they commit bad karma, the karma will hang on them. So there is this belief, this universal idea of karma, okay? And the brahmins have to say the Buddha is right. But still they refuse to admit defeat. So the Buddha, anyway, the Buddha goes on, he says, now, good karma cycle, right? So if anyone who does good karma, whether it's a brahmin or any of the other classes, any of the 4 classes, they all will benefit from the goodness of their own deeds, not just the brahmin. Okay? So this is section 8.1 onwards. So again, the brahmins agree, but they say they're not convinced. So in other words, they want the Buddha to, give as many arguments as possible. Maybe something like say, oh, that's just one argument, Right? So the Buddha went on giving other arguments against the purity of only the Brahmin class. Now the Buddha goes on to a spiritual aspect, cultivation of loving kindness. So here we have a good idea that the practice of loving kindness actually is a very ancient practice. Even the Brahmins do it, even the other probably wanderers also do it. But the Buddhists, when they adopted this practice, they made it into a very systematic way of practice. Right? So this is where you see the Buddha's genius. He's willing and able to adopt certain very good teachings from other religions and Buddhicize it, if you like, make it Buddhistic, in other words. But these are religious practices, not worldly practices. So here in section 9.1, 9.2, the Buddha tells the Brahmins, what do you think, Assalāyana? Is it only a Brahmin who is able to cultivate a heart of loving kindness in this region? Free from hate, free from ill will? But not a kshatriya, nor a vaishya, nor a sudra? Certainly not, Master Gautama replies Assalāyana. So it says, anyone from the 4 classes, or even outside the 4 classes, if you like, can cultivate loving kindness, and it will still work. So you can see here the beginning of the idea of the universality of goodness, of truth. They are beginning to reject the priesthood of the Brahmins. In a sense, something's happening in Singapore too. You find the more intelligent Buddhists or more intelligent people, they feel out of place in a temple. They just don't feel like going to temples because there's so much politicking, money-centered activities, and they find they cannot get real satisfaction through the kind of Buddhism they hear or that is being practiced in those groups, like purely rituals and so on. So they feel a little out of place. And they feel like they have no place to go. But then there is the suttas, the dharmas. The suttas teach us if you meditate at home or anywhere, or maybe a few friends meet together, talk suttas, practice dharma, and do whatever you enjoy doing in the dharma. You feel very happy. You don't need to go to any temples if you don't want to. Or you can even set up your own group. You don't need to be Buddhist to study the Dharma, for example. I have requests from people who tell me, can you give me so many copies of Sutta Discovery or Simple Joys? I have to give them to my non-Buddhist friends because my non-Buddhist friends are very interested in Buddhism. Although they are of other religions, so they're very keen to know Buddhism. They love to meditate. So these are the kinds of people we need to reach out to. So in other words, we should be less religious, but more Dharma moved, more spiritual. That way we enrich the lives of others, we make them really happy. And it's not just a kind of ritualistically living what other people tell us to do. So this is happening in the Buddha's time also. The people were dominated by the brahmins. They were very powerful. They were telling the people, this is what you should believe. This is the ritual you should do. You must do this every year, 4 or 5 rituals. And we're the only ones who can perform this for you. We're the only ones who talk the true Dharma and so on. But the Buddha said, no, we don't accept that. Anyone can practice the loving kindness. Anyone can practice Dharma. The karma affects everyone equally. No one can purify another. You have to purify yourself. So, you find the next section saying just that. I call it the self-purification cycle. 10.2. The Buddha says, what do you think, Assalāyana? Is it only a brahmin who, taking a bath sponge or loofah and bath powder, going to the river, who is able to wash off dust and dirt, and not a kshatriya, not a vaishya, nor a shudra? Right? It's a very simple matter of fact truth, It's almost like one of the best statement or words in Shakespeare's work, spoken ironically by Shylock, the Jew, when he felt discriminated by this Christian court in Venice. He says, how the Jew, no eyes, no ears, no nose, if you prick us, do we not feel pain? If you cut us, do we not bleed? What he's saying is, well, I'm just like you, so why do you discriminate me? Right? Of course, that is drama, okay? But here we have the Buddha telling the brahmins, if you have some soap, if you rub yourself in the water, do you not clean yourself? If a brahmin, a kshatriya, a vaishya, a shudra, or even an outcast were to do the same thing, does he not clean himself? I mean, it is amazing. It's such a simple logical statement, So the brahmins, of course, have to agree. If you wash yourself clean with the proper implements, you'll be clean. You don't need to be of any class. So the Buddha says any one of the 4 classes can be purified in the same way. So it's a kind of a clincher to the previous arguments on good karma, bad karma. But the Buddha is not finished yet. He goes on now. He's going to use the fire parable, the Raja's assembly, fire lighting cycle. Now, why does he use a fire parable? Because fire is very sacred to the Brahmin. So this will drive home the point very powerfully. But he tells a story because Brahmins love stories. The ancient Indians, even today, they love stories. 11.2. What do you think, Assalāyana? Here, a head-anointed Kshatriya Raja were to have assembled 100 men from various births, saying, come, sirs, those here who are born into the Kshatriya family, a Brahmin family, a royal family, take or bring along an upper stick. Upper stick is for making fire, the part that you hold, and you put it on the smallest thing in your rock. Okay? Bring an upper stick made of teak, or sal, or sorrel, or sandalwood, or padnaka, and produce some heat. Okay, these are all wood of very high quality. And these are brought by those of high caste. Then, 11.4, and come to, sirs, those here born into the Chandala or outcast family, or a trapper family, a weaker worker family, a cutthroat family, a scavenger's family, take an upper stick made of dog's trough, or a pig's trough, or a refuse bin, or castor oil wood, and start a fire, produce some heat. So he tells the outcast groups, okay, you also bring some wood, but the wood are all low quality wood. Okay? So he tells them, make a fire. So now the Buddha says, okay, you have these high caste people with their very good wood, the fire making wood, and here you have the low caste people with their poor quality wood, and they both are going to make fire. And this fire that is produced, and first of all, don't they both produce fire? They both can produce fire. Doesn't matter what class they are. And this fire, the Buddha says, is there any difference in their flame, their color, their heat? Fire is fire. Right? So it's a very simple, very convincing argument. And the Brahmins have to agree. Assalāyana has to agree. He says that 11.4, 11.13 actually. 11.13, his fire too will surely have a flame, a color, a radiance, and should be useful like any fire, right? The fire will still cook food. For indeed, Master Gautama, all fires have a flame, a color, and a radiance, and should be useful as any fire should. Right, so now the Buddha goes on to a little bit more complicated argument, if you like. This is a social argument, the intermarriage cycle. Because the Brahmins said they're still not convinced, right? In other words, they still want to hear more arguments. So, 12.2, what do you think, Assalāyana? Here, a Kshatriya youth, that means a boy, were to consort with a Brahmin maiden, and the result of their consorting, a son is born. Should the son born of the Brahmin maiden by the Kshatriya youth be like the mother or like the father? Should he be called like the Kshatriya or the Brahmin? Right? So the Assalāyana replies as well, since it's a mix, the parents are mixed, obviously the child can be called either one. He's a Kshatriya as well as a Brahmin, right? So there again, you have this, if you like, a genetic argument, if you like, yeah? Argument by marriage. Then the Buddha continues, he says, what about the other way around? If it's the Brahmin youth were to consort with a Kshatriya maiden. Right, the first one was Kshatriya boy, Brahmin girl. Second example, Brahmin boy, Kshatriya girl, right? So same thing, you know, the child or the son is still a Brahmin and a Kshatriya. Now the Buddha hits back. He says, all right, 14.1. What do you think, Assalāyana? Here a mare, female horse, were to mate with an ass. As a result of the mating, a foal is born. A little baby is born, right? Should the foal born with the mare by the ass be like the mother or like the father? Should he be called a horse or an ass? Now this is amazing, because this argument, you find that even applies today, because even in the Buddha's time, they have a special word for a cross between a horse and an ass, and it's called a mule. Okay? So, 14.2, under the account of crossbreeding, he should be called a mule. And the Brahmin goes on and says, for here, Master Gautama, I see the reason for difference, but I see no reason for any difference in the other two cases. Notice, very interesting argument here. Wonderful logic. Huh? This is learning to debate. Huh? So here, this Brahmin himself has to agree with the Buddha. He says, in the case of the Kshatriya boy and Brahmin girl, Brahmin boy and the Kshatriya girl having a child, they're both, the child are both the same. They can have both classes. But not here, not animals. So what's the implication here? We are not animals. We are animals, we are human beings. So since we are human beings, we have no difference. Any man mating another woman will produce a human child. So what's the big deal about all this, one class being purer than the other class? All human beings are born equal, and they remain equal, right? They're only bad to their actions. Now the Buddha is going deeper more complicated argument, if you like, more technical arguments. This time he brings the argument, the parable of the two Brahmin brothers. So here, 15.1. What do you think, Assalāyana? Suppose there were two Brahmin youths who are uterine brothers. One is an initiated reciter of the Vedas, the other neither initiated nor a reciter. Right? So two brothers, same mother, same father, born from the same womb. The one brother, he is consecrated. In other words, he's made into a priest, right? So he can teach the Vedas and perform rituals and so on. He's a holy man, so to speak. The other one is not. He's just an ordinary person. Both are, you might say, maybe twins, if you like, right? So the Buddha asks, if there is a ritual, right, who will be served first? Look at 15.2. Here, would the Brahmins first feed the ancestral offering, or the oblation, or the sacrifice, or the guest meal? To whom will they feed all these holy offerings? And the Brahmin replies, here, Master Gautama, it is the Brahmin youth who is initiated, an initiated reciter, who will be the first to be fed the ancestral offering, or the fire oblation, or the sacrifice, or the guest meal, or the sacred offerings will be given to this holy young man, so to speak. For it is great fruit, in other words, good karma to do that. Then the Buddha asks, okay, what if this initiated youth, this young priest, he is a bad guy, immoral, bad by nature, whereas the brother who is not initiated, not a priest, not a holy man, but he doesn't even know the Vedas, but he is morally virtuous and good by nature. Who would the Brahmin serve first? Now here it's very interesting because Assalāyana, he's not only a Brahmin, he's also honest and upright. So he replies, he says, of course the Brahmins will serve the good guy first. They will not serve the bad Brahmin priest. They will serve the good layman. So here we have a very interesting teaching. It is not the robes that make a monk. It's not the hairstyle or the status, the titles that make a monk. It's his behavior. If the monk is immoral, he should not be treated as a monk. But if a layman is morally virtuous, good and kind, and better still, knows the Dharma, he should be respected. Then, at this point, Assalāyana is silenced. Almost convinced, if you like. 17.1. First, Assalāyana, you took your stand on birth. Going from birth, you took a stand on the mantras. Going from the mantras, you took a stand on asceticism. Going from asceticism, you went back to your stand on purity of the four classes. This is what I have prescribed. Since there you are, this is my teaching. Okay? When this was said, the Brahmin youth, Assalāyana, sat cross-legged, silent, dismayed, his shoulders drooping, hanging his head downcast and bewildered. In other words, he admits defeat, right? He doesn't know what else to say. I mean, he already told his Brahmin colleagues a hundred of times, he says, look, I can't defeat this guy. I mean, this Buddha is really, he's a great debater, but here it is, But the Buddha is not finished yet. He goes with a story, a very famous story of an ancient teacher. Now using history. 18.1. Once upon a time, Assalāyana, when 7 Brahmin seers or rishis were consulting one another in a leaf hut in their forest dwelling, a bad view such as this arose to them. So here the Buddha is using a kind of Jataka story, long ago. Notice these Brahmins were living in the forest, living in tree huts. So it's going back to an ancient time. This is the time of the early Upanishads, if you like. But he says these 7 Brahmins, they got together And then they have this wrong view. In other words, at that time the Brahmins do not have, the good Brahmins don't have this view. And what's the wrong view? The same one as the current Brahmins are talking about. That the Brahmins the best class, other classes are inferior, the Brahmins the fair class, other classes are dark, Brahmins are pure, non-Brahmins are impure, Brahmins are born from mouth of God, and so on. So that's the wrong view they had a long time ago. Then, while we were doing that, something else happened, 18.5. Then Assalāyana, the seer, another wise man, Asita Devala, having groomed his hair and beard, dressed in crimson cloths, put on multi-layered sandals, and taking his golden staff, appeared in a compound of the Brahmin seers. Now this Asita Devala is also a holy man, a Brahmin just like the others, right? So he appears and he was walking up and down, but he's dark, see, he's dark skinned unlike the other Brahmins. So these other Brahmins came out, and 18.6. Then Assalāyana, what the seer, Asita Devala, was walking up and down in the 7 Brahmin seers compound, he said this, "Where now have these worthy Brahmin seers gone? Where now have these worthy Brahmin seers gone?" So he's looking for the Brahmins. Then the Brahmins came out, and so they felt that this dark man has disturbed their meeting. So they're very upset. The Brahmins are very upset. So the Brahmins decided, 18.8, it says, "Let us put a curse on him." Alright? Then Assalāyana, the 7 Brahmin seers, place a curse on the seer Asita Devala thus: "Turn into ash, lowly wretch, turn into ash, lowly wretch." Okay? But Assalāyana, the more the 7 Brahmins cursed the seer Asita Devala, the more calmly, the more lovely, and all the more charming the seer Asita Devala became. Right? So the more they cursed him, the more radiant he looked. He was not upset at all. Here again is another lesson for us. People can talk bad about us, we just remain calm. Then it occurred to the Brahmins, 7 Brahmin seers, "Empty indeed is our asceticism, fruitless indeed is our holy life." So they got a shock. They say, "Oh dear, what has happened to us? We've lost our power." Formerly, when we curse someone, turn into ash, lowly wretch, turn into lowly wretch, he indeed becomes ashes. But the more we curse the seer Asita Devala, all the more calmly, all the more lovely, all the more charming he becomes. So, neither your asceticism nor your holy life, sir, is in vain. So this is what Asita says. "Come on, sirs, let go of the hatred in your hearts towards me." And then the Brahmins say, "Okay, we don't hate you anymore. But who are you?" Then Asita says, "Have you, sirs, not heard of the seer Asita Devala?" Then the Brahmins say, "Yes, sir, we have." "I, sir, am he." Then Assalāyana, the 7 Brahmin seers, went up to the seer Asita Devala and saluted him with joint palms. Then the seer Asita Devala said this to the 7 Brahmin seers: "I heard, sirs, it is said that while the 7 Brahmins were consulting one another, while you were meeting together, and this is what you said, that we are the best class, we are the purest, we are fair-skinned, and so on." And the Brahmins say, "Yes, we did that." And then the Asita continues, 18.21, "But sirs, do you know whether your birth mother went or consulted with only a Brahmin, not a non-Brahmin?" "No, sir." Right? So it says, do you know your parents really, your father, was he really a Brahmin? I mean, you know your mother is a Brahmin, but you know whether your father is really a Brahmin or not. And this Brahmin said, "Come on, do you think of it? We don't know." 18.22, "But sir, do you know whether your birth mother's mothers, back through 7 generations, went only with Brahmins, not with non-Brahmins? So what about your mothers? You may think your mother is a Brahmini, but do you know whether for the last 7 generations, that means as long as you can remember, you can trace your genealogy, do you really know that all the time, your mother's mother and so on, they actually married or consulted with a Brahmin? In other words, let's say we all belong to one village, thousands of people, and we practice endogamy. It says everyone must marry someone in the village. But so do you know in all the past generations that's what actually happened? There's no way of knowing. So they said, no sir, we do not know. 18.24, 18.23, so then again the Asutta Devala says, what about your birth father? Do you know in the past generation that all of them, their wife were brahmins? Again, he said, you do not really know, it's hard to know. So no matter how far back you go, you won't be able to know. The further back you go, the less certainty is. Then Asutta comes with a clincher, 18.25. Do you know, sir, how a being to be born or Gandharva descends, or how conception occurs? Okay, then the Brahmin says, yes, we do know how a being to be born descends. Here there is a coming together of a mother and father. It is the mother's season, and there is the presence of the being to be born. The meeting of the three is the descent of the being to be born. This is found in other suttas also. It's well known in knowledge. In other words, you must have all these conditions for birth. Now comes the key question. Asita asks, but sirs, do you know for sure if that being to be born, in other words, that consciousness that comes down, is a Kshatriya or a Brahmin or a Vaishya or a Shudra? Can you know what kind of class is that consciousness of that being to be born? And this poor 7 Brahmin said, no sir, we do not know for sure if that being to be born is a Kshatriya or a Brahmin or a Vaishya or a Shudra. Finally, Asita says, that being the case, do you know what you are? Do you really know what you are? That being the case, we do not know what we are. So you notice the argument here. It's a very powerful argument. The Buddha says that, the being to be born, the consciousness, the rebirth consciousness, has no class. It's neither Brahmin, nor Kshatriya, nor Vaishya, nor Shudra. So how can you claim to be any of them? You don't even know what class that being to be born, that Gandharva is. So they say, in that case we can't really say what we are. So this is the, what should I say, almost like an evolutionary argument, if you like. But it's a rebirth argument. You can't really know. This rebirth consciousness has no class. Then the Buddha thinks, then something else happens. Now, Assalāyana, even the 7 Brahmin seers, on being questioned, cross-questioned, pressed for an answer by the seer Asita Devala regarding their own claims of birth, were unable to explain it. What more of you here? Okay, who's speaking now? The Buddha is speaking to the Brahmins present before him. How will you, when questioned, cross-questioned, pressed for an answer by me on your claim about birth, be able to explain it? You who share the same teaching, but not Puna, the ladle holder. And this is one of those mystery statements, we were not very sure what this means. But the commentary says that Puna, the ladle holder, is, you can see a footnote 117 there. It says that this is a servant of the 7 Brahmins. The 7 Brahmins has a servant, and then the servant is it's not a holy man, you see. But it says, you all have the same teaching, and the cook, the ladle holder, he's an expert in using the ladle, but he doesn't know what you know. But he's also reborn in the same way. So what difference is there, right? So this is the final argument. Assalāyana, nothing more to say. The Brahmins probably also, nothing more to say. All the other 500 Brahmins. So verse 19, when this was said, the Brahmin youth said this to the Blessed One. Marvelous Master Gautama, marvelous Master Gautama. Just as if Master Gautama, one were to place upright what had been overturned, or were to reveal what was hidden, or were to show the way to one who was lost, or were to hold up a lamp in the dark so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way, in various ways, the Dharma has been declared by Master Gautama. I go to Master Gautama for refuge, to the Dharma and to the community of monks. May the Master Gautama remember me as a layman who has gone to him for refuge from this day forth for life. Of course we can say here that...
The Sangami.
Okay. Of course we can say here that Assalāyana became a Buddhist citizen, but we have no record of that. You see, the thing here is that, take for example the Brahmin Janusoni. He meets the Buddha and asks the Buddha many questions. There's a record of at least about 16 times, I think, 16 or 18 times. Every time at the end of the sutta, he takes refuge. Now, if you declare yourself a Buddhist by taking refuge, why do 18 times or 16 times? It won't make sense, right? Once is enough. So I think this kind of refuge taking on this level anyway, it's just a gesture of respect, saying that, okay, you are the teacher, I respect you as the teacher. And we know later on, Assalāyana, this name Assalāyana is a very famous Brahmanical name, and he goes on to, continue with his works of Brahmin, and there was no record that Assalāyana became a Buddhist, so to speak. In other words, we have different levels of refuge going. So this is a kind of like a ritual kind of refuge going, a gesture of respect for the teacher. And then you have, for example, the case of Jivaka. He is already a stream winner, but he goes to refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma Sangha. So that kind of refuge is there is more commitment there. So, and then you have another one where the Buddha introduces this ordination procedure where someone who wants to join the order, he first recites the 3 refuges, declaring his faith in the 3 jewels, and then he becomes a monk. So there are different levels of refuge going, not just one. Okay? And the most important, of course, is the one where you have faith and wisdom as a reason, and as a stream winner, you take refuge, like that of Jivaka. I've written a kind of short little research on this in volume 43, Sutta Discovery. So do, for example, look up the explanation in the Jivaka Sutta in volume ST43. So with that, we end this study for today. Once again, we are starting another beautiful sutta, telling us about how the Buddha uses wisdom to convince and to teach other intelligent people, in this case Assalāyana. The suttas is always there to raise our consciousness, to remind us of how deep inside us there's always some wisdom. So the more we examine the suttas, the more we see the wisdom in ourselves. And we use this wisdom to clear away wrong views so that our minds become peaceful and calm more easily. Then we can do our mindfulness practice or meditation so that we are able to see impermanence, for example, true reality especially, right here and now. With this kind of, by the truth of this reflection, may in this life itself we attain peace of mind through our meditation. Whenever we meditate, we are at peace with ourselves. And most importantly, may we attain spiritual liberation and this stream winning in this life itself. In this moment of peace, let us share our loving kindness with all beings, especially those who have brought us the Dharma, those who are doing Dharma work, that they may be closer to the Dharma, and that they may be happier, and make more people, more beings happier too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.